Stacy. I'm an addict. Thanks, Mike. I guess I'll first say that, like Mike said, I've been clean since 2010. So I celebrated 11 years in February. I'm coming around in a little bit longer than that, but I struggled a lot there for a while, and it took me some time, like it does a lot of us, to start to listen and become open-minded to the principles of the program. But I'm really glad that I was coming around, even before I got clean, because the seed was planted. And as a matter of fact, my first home group was with Erica here in Huntington, and a couple other people I see out there, and I struggled a lot back then. But I'm so grateful to those people for being there and introducing me to this program, and it's really awesome to see that a lot of them are still around. So, I don't know, I've been trying to think of what I'm going to say. I mean, I am going to tell my story, but I don't want to sugarcoat anything, because this year has been a motherfucker. And it's been the most challenging one of my recovery so far. And I've been through some shit in my recovery that's been really, really awful. But this year has been the worst as far as the feelings that are associated with just negative feelings that we have, isolation and stress and all those things. It's just been a really tough year. And I think, and I could be wrong, because I'm not a newcomer, so if you're a newcomer, I'm sorry if this doesn't apply to you, but I feel like a lot of us that have been around for a minute have had it really rough, you know what I mean? Because I see newcomers coming in right now, and they're even with the pandemic and stuff, they're able to come in and their life is better because they're not out on the streets. They're not, dope sick anymore. They're able to eat. They've got a warm place to sleep. And then, some of us people who've been around for a while, our lives have been getting better over the years. And then all this shit happened or whatever. And now our lives are getting a lot worse, And it's been really hard for a lot of us, I think. And I'm one of them. So, I don't want to, sugarcoat anything or gloss over, some of the stuff that's been going on in my life for the past year, because this year has been really, really hard, because recovery is hard. And I saw a meme shared a few years ago that made me so mad on Facebook. It was going around saying, "Stop saying that recovery's hard. Recovery is easy." And I was like, no, it's not. Okay? It's not easy. But it is worth it. And, it's way better than the alternative, that's for sure. So, a little bit about me. I'm from Huntington, West Virginia. I live in Charleston now. I grew up in Huntington in a really normal family. My mom and dad have been married for 45 years, 46 years, something like that. They've been together since they were teenagers. I've never heard them fight in my life. To this day, I'm sure they have, but they don't do it in front of their kids, and they never have. They're I don't know, they're just the perfect parents, really. They raised me right with, good values and morals and stuff like that. They just got really unlucky. I always start out saying that because, I hear other people sharing their stories, and, there's been a lot of trauma in their lives, that led them to using, and that wasn't the case for me. But, addiction doesn't discriminate, it can affect any of us, and, just because I didn't have that trauma in my life doesn't mean that it didn't get me too, because it definitely did. And, I think the one thing that I have in common with everybody else here is that, regardless of my situation growing up, I always felt weird growing up. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. I was never okay with who I was. And I started using at a really early age to try and feel better about myself. I think I picked up, for the first time when I was 11 years old. And I drank, my parents' stash and drank, and then my sister was always hanging out with some new loser of the week. She was older than me, And they would smoke weed and stuff with me or whatever, Now I look back on that, I'm like, God, you were a terrible sister. I was 11. But, and then, when I got to be just a few years older, I really started experimenting. And I think, a lot of children do that. I was still a teenager when I got into hard drugs, and I look back on the stuff that I did before that, and I think, man, I was an addict then. Even though I was using successfully, I was making good grades in school, and I was flying under the radar at home. I was, never in trouble or anything like that. I was using excessively back then. It just wasn't affecting my life in a negative way. So I think about that a lot, where it actually started. And it started really, really early. But once I got to be 18 or 19, I got into harder stuff and moved away for a while with a boyfriend, and got so bad that I was living out on the streets and had burned every bridge possible. And eventually I had nowhere else to go, so I had to call my mom and dad and get honest with them and tell them to come get me and bring me back to West Virginia. So they did, and they had no idea, They had no idea that I had been using like that, and that I've been homeless and stuff. And I had no experience with recovery, with even rehabs, with 12-step fellowships, nothing like that. I didn't know anything about that stuff. I didn't really know what to do. Rehab wasn't really an option. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. The only thing I knew about NA, and I think it was NA, was that I had watched the movie Half-Baked. And the part when Bob Saget, he's talking about, Dave Chappelle's addicted to weed or something, and he's talking about it, and Dave Chappelle stands up and he's like, try sucking dick for coke, that's addiction, not weed, whatever. And that was the only thing I knew about it. So my plan was that I really didn't want to stay with my parents, so I went out into the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, with some friends of mine. They weren't addicts, and I just left my car at home, started a car, and I went out there and told them not to let me leave. I just laid on the couch for 2 weeks, and I detoxed myself, and I was like, oh, good to go. I'm not addicted anymore, and great, And it actually worked for a little while. I got this boyfriend who was real normal. He wasn't an addict. He didn't even drink or do anything at all. Got back into school, went to college, and was acting really, really normal for a while. But like I said, I never had any experience with recovery literature, professionals, telling me about myself, anything like that. And I didn't understand that this disease was progressive. And one day I decided I was just going to pick back up, and it wasn't going to do what it did to me last time, because now I understood that I shouldn't do it every day. So that lasted for 2 weeks, and then it was well, I'm sick again. And I'm back to where I was. And that sucked, and I never stopped after that until I got clean this time. The only time that I would stop for time periods is when I went to jail, which was lots of times. In fact, I was in jail, I don't know. I remember going to jail one time and then getting out, and then 2 days later getting arrested again and going back to the same pod, and the girls that were still there were like, what are you doing here? You just got out. I was like, I know, I can stay clean. But those were the only, periods of clean time that I had, was when, something would physically stop me. During that time, I've destroyed all my relationships, with my family, with that boyfriend, with my best friend that I had since I was 10 years old. We still don't talk to this day. Now it's just out there, and I really didn't have a desire to do anything different. And I remember I went out to a bar one day, and I met up with this guy that I was friends with. I had been friends with him since high school, since the 9th grade. And we had run around a lot together in high school. I bought a lot of drugs from him. And, I wasn't with that nice guy anymore, and I was like, oh, hey, this guy probably has some more drugs, and we should probably get together, so we did that. And we just used together for like a long time, and at one point I realized that I had gotten pregnant, and I was terrified. I still had I knew nothing about recovery. I knew nothing about 28-day programs. I knew nothing about treatment. I knew nothing about NA. And I was just terrified, I didn't know what to do, and so I did nothing. I didn't do anything. I didn't go to the doctor. I was just pregnant, I kept using. And, finally, when I was probably, 7 months pregnant or something, my dad insisted, it was obvious that I was pregnant by then, by the way, but my dad insisted that I go get an ultrasound. So he came and picked me up and took me, and that was the first time I'd been. And a couple weeks later, I just went into labor, like, out of nowhere, very early, and had that baby. I was all messed up, in the hospital, and it was not a pleasant experience. But, once I had him, I was like, wow, man, I can't keep doing this, I, fell in love with that little guy, and, I just thought to myself, what am I doing? I can't do this anymore. And, of course, he came with a CPS case because I was dirty, and so was he. But they let me have him, and I was not fit to be a mother at all. As much as I loved him, it wasn't enough. I continued to use. Once I was released from the hospital, I dragged him all over the place in his baby carrier, on drug runs and everything else. I got into legal trouble with, him with me. And by the time he was 4 months old, and I had just been kind of couch surfing here, there, and everywhere with him, I got into so much trouble that the police were just you already have a CPS case. If there's no kinship person, that can take him, he's just going to have to go to foster care with the state. And so I was like, okay, I had to call my mom and dad again, and my mom and dad are I said, perfect. They came and got him, and took care of him, and they raised him until he, from the time he was 4 years old, or 4 months old until he was 4 years old. But, now it was heartbreaking for me, but at the same time, I knew it was the best thing for him, but also I wanted to use, and, him not being with me allowed me to go that much harder, and that's what I did. So while they had him, my social worker was like, have you ever thought about going to rehab? And I was like, what's that? Oh, half-baked, yes. I remember that. Okay. So I did that. I was like, yeah, I'll give that a try. So I went to rehab, and they have those in-house NAA meetings or whatever, and they had the president of NA, that's what they called it. That was the person who chaired the meetings, and I was they're reading all these readings, and I was like, holy shit, what have I got myself into? Kind of weird cult. Weird cult program is this, and then we'd get up at the end and hug, and they would pray, but to me they were chanting their satanic prayers or whatever they were. And I was like, I don't know, man. This is too weird for me. So, they had told me to go to meetings when I got out, and I got out, and I did not do that, because I was like, I don't want to do that. And I continued to use, and nothing really changed. And so, somehow, thought at some point I was pregnant again. And I was like, oh my God, please don't let this be the case. But I decided I was going to take a pregnancy test, and I did, and it was positive, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm pregnant. I was homeless at the time. My dad had been working on a house, and he was letting me stay there. There was nothing in the house but a TV and a little eggshell foam thing that went over a bed, but there was no bed. I was just laying on that on the floor. But the people who lived in the house before, they hadn't turned the cable off, and the cable company hadn't figured it out yet. So at least I was like, yes, I can lay on this little eggshell foam thing and watch cable at least. That was a positive pregnancy test, and I was like, what am I going to do? Well, there was no choice to really be made, because within a week I got arrested because I had drugs on me and got caught. I went to jail, and the jail took a month before they took me to the doctor, even though they knew I was pregnant. But when they did, they took me to Cattle Huntington Hospital, and my oranges, and my feet were shackled together, and my hands were shackled together, and 2 giant COs that were they would transport me eating Tudor's biscuits in front of me, not give me any. They would always take me to the doctor. The first time I went, they did an ultrasound, and they figured out that I was 28 weeks pregnant, and I had no idea up until right before that I had been pregnant the whole entire time, because I was so messed up on stuff. Not a clue. Nothing had changed. None of the normal things happened that happen when you get pregnant. I hadn't gained any weight. And nobody could believe it. Nobody could believe that I was nearly 7 months pregnant. And, I was stuck in jail during the rest of that pregnancy, and, I got out a couple weeks before I had her on home confinement. They let me have her on home confinement. And when I had her, I was clean because I had been in jail up until that point. And it felt really good, when I had her. I was clean this time. There was no social worker, even though they were kind of concerned that I had a black box on my face. But, they didn't call a social worker over that. And it just felt good, I was like, man, I think I've got a chance with this one. And I can do this. But they sent me home with some medication. And I was like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not what I was using before, so I'll just take a little bit of this here and there. And it doesn't work like that. As we all know now, one is too many, 1,000 is never enough, and it just reactivated my addiction. So it was just on again from that point. And I was in so much trouble legally. It was just in and out of jail again, even with her. I still had her. I was taking care of her. I had custody of her. They didn't take her away from me or anything. But I wasn't a good mom. I mean, I thought I was. I thought I was doing the things that I needed to do for her, changing her diapers and feeding her and stuff, but I was high the whole entire time. I know my friend Ashley, she loves to tell this story, whatever, but she loves to tell this story because by that time my probation officer was making me come to NA in Huntington, and I would drag that baby with me to NA. And she's like, my friend Ashley, she's like, yeah, I came to a meeting and you were holding a hot cup of coffee, nodding out over your baby. And it was like, I didn't spill it on her, okay? But that's who I was back then. I never could stay clean. I tried and tried. I failed so many drug tests, even though I was in legal trouble, and I just could not get it together. And I had a suspended prison sentence from a diversion program that I was in. It was a 1 to 15. For possession with intent, and I was to the point where I thought, I'm going to have to serve it because I just cannot stay clean no matter what I do. And so I went to jail one more time, yet again, and my probation officer comes to the house I was staying at, and just drug tested me on the spot, and I was dirty, of course. And, he sent me to jail, and he was like, this is your last chance. I'm not messing with you anymore. You can either stay clean this time, or you can take your prison sentence. And I was like, okay. So I stayed in there for a few months, and, you know, he called and he said, you know, I got you a bed in Charleston, and, don't fuck it up. And so, okay. So I came to Charleston to a treatment, like transitional living facility for women in 2010. It was actually on April 1st, 2010. I've been clean a little bit longer than that because I was in jail. I still didn't want to be clean. I just didn't, you know. I was around all these women, and they were annoying, you know. And they were full of drama, and I was never really like that. I was never really a girly girl, never like full of drama or anything like that. And they were always, I don't know, chatty and gossipy, and you know. And they made us go to meetings, you know, so many meetings a week, and there was a new meeting, M&A, at the time, like right down the road, downtown. And so I was able to go to that one, and I started going to that one, and for a couple of months, it just still didn't really sink in. You know, I was trying to listen. I was trying to understand what these people were talking about, but I didn't really get it. But at some point, you know, they made me get a sponsor. They made me get a home group. And so I did that, and I joined this home group that had a bunch of people with like, you know, 15, 20 years clean in it. And they were like hardcore. They were like, you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. And they were like assholes about everything. Thank you. Because I've noticed now, you know, a lot of those people aren't coming around because they can't. I miss it, man, because I'm not an asshole like that, and I want to be. I want to be an asshole and be like, you need to be at home with it this time. You know? And if you're not, fuck you. But that's how they were, you know. They were just like, you're going to go to area service, and you're going to be here at this time, and you're going to stay late, and you're going to do this. And I was like, okay, you know, so I did all that stuff. And in the meantime, you know, my kid's dad, they have the same dad, you know, he was like, you know, you're getting clean, I'm going to get clean too. I was like, all right, you know, so he moved to Charleston too and went to a place, and he got clean too. And, you know, eventually I was doing all these things like that I was supposed to do with the transitional living and court and my legal problems, getting all that stuff straightened out, and going to NA and doing service work. And I think I was the secretary of the area within a year or two, and I was like the activities vice chair, and I was like super involved all of a sudden, and I was like, who am I? You know? And like soon after that, you know, I got my daughter back. You know, she was just a baby at the time, and then I got my son back. You know, he was 4 years old, and I was like, I don't know how to take care of a 4-year-old, but I'll try. And, you know, and his dad was taking care of him too. You know, we both lived in our separate little transitional living place, apartment type places or whatever, but we, you know, we were co-parenting and doing the thing, and our relationship was kind of off and on sometimes, but, it was really nice. It was like the first time in like years, you know, that like I felt like a sense of normalcy, and, it was really cool. You know, I was like doing this like mom thing, and you know, I was doing this work thing, and I started working at Geno's on the East End in Charleston, which is a terrible place to work if you're in recovery, by the way. Lots of people smoking crack outside, but like I got really good at making pizzas really fast, and they were just like, man, we love you, here's the keys, you know. And I was like, wow, I got the keys, I got the combination to the safe, I can't believe this. And like while I was working there, like I got this job opportunity with the States. I was working both places. I was like, oh my God, I'm like still a criminal and I get to work for the States, you know. Still had charges at that point, convicted felon, drug felon, by the way. So, you know, like some things were starting to look up, you know, and things were going pretty good. But, you know, life happens, you know, and I think it's Erica, and I've said it before. I've heard Erica say this before, you know, when we talk about coming in, being new, and being on that pink cloud. And I remember her saying a long time ago, you better have a pink parachute. And that's the truth. because, despite how good things are going, shit is eventually going to hit the fan, and it did. So, like I said, me and my boyfriend and our kids were all this happy family. And, he's doing all this stuff. He's like going to NA, and he's got this awesome sponsor, and he's like the panel leader for work release, and I'm doing my thing. And, eventually he just started acting weird, and I was like, you don't seem right to me. And he denied it, I'm fine. And, it came out that he was using, and, he had relapsed and stuff, and I was so mad. I was just like, how did you do this? We finally got our shit together, and I just don't understand. And, he would just deny it most of the time, trying to make me feel like I was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I was really the one that was living in insanity, because, I was like, maybe I am crazy. Maybe he really isn't using. But I knew he was, and, it was obvious after a while. I mean, there was no denying it anymore. And one day he stole my car, went to Huntington to get some dope, and came back and wrecked my car. And so he had to call me then and be like, yeah, I'm using, I was like, yeah, I know. So it was all bad after that for a while. Our relationship deteriorated, and he was out there, and I didn't really know what was going on with him. I made him come to the park once a week to spend time with his kids for an hour, and that was his contact with them. But I needed to keep my distance. But after a few months, he came to me and he said, I'm ready to get back to NA. I'm ready to get clean again, and I need to do this and I need to do that. And I'm like, well, do it. You've got this awesome sponsor. Why don't you call him? So he did. He started working on his steps again. When he lived in a place that is not really good for people in recovery, to be quite honest, at the time. And I remember him saying that, some of his neighbors were making it really hard for him to stay clean. And, at the time, I had a couple years clean at the time. I was like, I don't care, I'm clean, you can stay clean too, I mean, I thought about it, but one day I went to my home group. It was on a Tuesday night, and a friend of mine who lived next door to him in that apartment building had come to the meeting, and he said, I knocked on Matt, my boyfriend's door, to see if he wanted to ride to the meeting, and he didn't answer. And I was like, yeah, I tried to text him to see if he wanted to ride earlier too, and he didn't answer. And that just, I don't know, I sat there and I just thought about that, for the rest of the meeting. And so I went outside and I started calling him and texting him, and he didn't answer. And that was really weird for him not to answer. And I told that guy at the meeting, I was like, can you, when you get home, you go, stand outside of his door and call his phone and see if you can hear it ringing in his apartment, just see if he's home. And he was like, yeah, I'll do that. So he does that. He called me, said, I don't hear it ringing in his apartment. I was like, okay, I guess he's out doing whatever he's doing, and I felt okay. But the more the night went on, I just started getting this really bad feeling in my gut. And I remember texting him in the middle of the night and saying, I really wish you would call me, because I'm pretty sure that you're dead. And I had called all these people, and everybody was like, you're being ridiculous. Everybody told me I was being ridiculous. And the place that he was at, the transitional living place that he came from, owned those apartment buildings. And so I had my friend get in touch with those people, that ran that place. And, I was like, I'm really worried about him. Can you guys go check on him? And they were like, if he doesn't show up to work in the morning, then we'll go, unlock his door. And I was like, okay. So I decided I was just going to, do the normal thing. I was going to try to go to sleep. I was going to get up in the morning. I was going to take my kids to daycare, and I was going to go to work. So I barely slept at all. But I must have fallen asleep at some point, because I had a dream that night, and it was a dream of his funeral. And I was just standing there looking at him at his funeral, and there were all these people there. And I came to, and I was just like, oh, that what a terrible dream, But I was like trying to convince myself that everything was going to be okay because everybody kept telling me that. And so I stuck with my plan, and I went and I took my kids to their daycare, and then I decided I was going to go to work, and I parked for work in the parking lot beside his apartment building because he didn't have a car, so he let me use that space that belonged to him. And it was close to where I worked, so I would just park there and then walk over to work. And the whole time that I was driving from the daycare to his parking lot, I just kept having these visions of like police cars and ambulances and fire trucks, and I was just like, something isn't right. Well, I pulled up into the parking lot and I didn't see anything, and I was just like, sigh of relief. I was just like, thank God, he's okay. And I just turned and pulled up a little farther into my space, and there was a police car and a fire truck and an ambulance right there. And so I got out, and I already knew. I had been thinking about this. I just knew, it was just intuition. I got out and I ran over to the front of the apartment building, and there was some guy standing outside. I have no idea who he was, but he knew who I was because he knew I already must have lived there, and he already knew what was going on, and he could tell by me screaming and crying who I was. So the building was a locked building, and he had the passcode, and he let me in. And as soon as I got in, the building manager, who I knew, she came over to me and she just hugged me, and she took me into a room where there were some police and there was a medical examiner. And, he sat me down and he said, they came and checked on him this morning like they told you that they were going to do, and he didn't show up for work. And, unfortunately, he's deceased. And I said, I know. And I have known. And so by that time, my friend, who was the one I had contacted to call his the organization that owns the apartment building, he had come, he'd heard, and he came to be with me, and he had been roommates at that place with him a year before that, and so they were close. And he was just in disbelief, and I just looked at him and said, I told you so. And so the medical examiner was like, do you want to see him? Because we haven't brought him down yet. And I said, yeah. And so they took me and my friend Sam upstairs to see him. And he was already in the body bag. They had it zipped up to here. And he looked insane. He looked so insane. I've seen people die before, of overdoses and everything, but I've never seen something that looked like this. And it was just like this image I thought was going to be burned into my mind for the rest of my life. And my friend Sam turned around and he just started crying. He couldn't even look at him. And all I could do was cuss him out. I was like, fucking piece of shit, you did this to me. So we left, and it was, by this time it was probably 10 a.m., all the stuff that was going on and everything. And, right beside there was the noon meeting. And that was the only thing I really knew to do, was just go there and wait. Wait for it to be noon, So I sat there, and people started coming, and I sat outside with them for a while, and we talked, and we had the noon meeting, and it was real quiet in there that day. There were a lot of people, more than normal. A lot of people had heard about it by that time, and some people even from the other fellowship who knew us and stuff were coming, and they just came there and sat with us in silence, really, during the meeting, for the most part. And I think it was the next day, I don't remember. Anyway, after the meeting the next day, I was talking to his mom, my boyfriend's mom, on the phone after the meeting, and she was trying to figure out what we were going to do for a service. And she didn't have any money. They're really poor. I didn't have any money. This is before GoFundMe, by the way. And she said that, they had talked to some funeral home or something in Elkview. And I said, okay, well, I'll go to his apartment and get him some clothes. What do you want him to wear? And she was like, oh, well, he's not going to, they don't need clothes for him. He's just going to have a sheet over him, and the family can just come and see, whatever. Well, Mike was there, and I was talking about it afterwards, and he was like, "Nah." And he called a funeral home in Charleston, and he was just like, "Hey, can you help us out?" And they were like, "Yeah." Just come up with whatever money you can, whatever it is, it's fine, and we'll do whatever you want. And so I had another friend in NA call everybody at NA that she knew all over the state. And remember, this is before GoFundMe. She had to drive all over the place and pick up cash from people. And that's what she did. And a day or two, she had several $1,000s, all from people in NA. To help with the costs to, have a service for him and have him cremated and stuff. So we were able to have a really nice service. Another one of my friends, helped with that service, worked there, and he looked like himself when I saw him. That image that I saw, when he was in that body bag, that was not the last image of him that I had to see. He looked like himself at the service, and what was crazy was there were tons of people there. I mean, they were I don't know, they had put, I don't know, they filled up the whole entire place with chairs, and they asked me if that would be enough chairs, and I said, oh yeah, that's plenty. It wasn't plenty. There was no room. I don't know who these people were, but they were people from NA, and people that I didn't even know. I don't even know if some of them knew him. But back then, people weren't dropping like flies like they are right now. They weren't. And so, when we lost somebody, it's always a big deal, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but, it was more shocking, and people came together for that kind of thing. And I was just so grateful to the fellowship, because they just took care of me so much during that time. And I remember I had been on a 4th step whenever right before he died. I was on a 4th step, and I had 2 years clean. I had to go back a few times because I had a sponsor relapse, and I restarted and stuff. And I got to that resentment section, and I was like, I don't have any resentments. So I already worked through every resentment that I had. I don't really have any. And then he died, and I resented everything. I mean, I would look on Facebook, and somebody would be like, oh, I got a new puppy, and I'd be like, fuck you and your new puppy. Don't you understand my world has crashed down or whatever, and you're over here talking about your stupid little puppy? I mean, I resented everything, and I just felt like that for the longest time. But I had these people in the program that just would not let me fall. They just wouldn't. I mean, I had this girl over here was at my house every day. This guy over here was at my house every day. I mean, just people were surrounding me with love, and they were just we're taking you with us wherever we go. You're not going to fall. You're going to be okay. And, I ended up having to go and restart the steps again, because I kind of lost that connection to whatever, higher power I had made a connection with. And it worked. I resisted it for a long time. My sponsor was like, I really think you need to start over again. I was like, I'm not doing that. She finally talked me into it, and it was a really, really good thing, because, working those first 3 steps, I was able to build that connection again and not feel so much resentment. And I remember sitting in a noon meeting one day, and still feeling a little resentful. And somebody was reading out of the basic text that part that says something like, we've never seen anybody leave this way of life fail. And I was thinking to myself, well, I've seen it, and I was starting to resent NA a little bit. I have seen it. I said, I've seen people have really good sponsors and work the steps, and I've seen people do service work, and I've seen them reach out and do all these things and still pick up and use. And it was then pointed out to me that, this way of life, and, the number one rule of this program is don't pick up no matter what, and this is just a choice, that I have to make every day, and all these things that come with it. Like, I know we say all the time, like, when people celebrate, like, how'd you do it? We did it. Yeah, we did do it. You know what I mean? Y'all helped me do it, that's for sure. But I'm the one that makes the decision, not you. It's me. And what NA does for me, it's like, you know, it has allowed me to completely change from a person I used to be to the person I am now. And the person I am now doesn't want to pick up. And, you know, that's what the principles and the steps have done for me. That's who they changed me into. As somebody who doesn't want to live that life, who doesn't want to pick up and use drugs, who doesn't want to even risk destroying my family, you know? I mean, I hear people saying sometimes, how many years do you have to be clean before you can actually, like, maybe just try it, you know? I've been reading studies, and some people can do it, you know? I've heard some people say that lately, and I'm like, I wonder if I could do that. I thought about that, and then I think, maybe I could. I don't know. Do I want to risk it? Fuck no, I don't want to risk it. I mean, maybe and probably means that there's like a degree of doubt. You know what I mean? Like, and that's too much for me, you know? I'm not risking it. So I came to convention 2 weeks after he died, to this convention. It was spring convention, and I was sitting at the campfire meeting, and I was listening to some girl in tears, and she was talking about her mom dying, I'm pretty sure, like just maybe a few days before, recently. And she was talking about how she compared herself to an elephant, you know, wounded elephant. And she said that whenever there's a wounded elephant, the rest of the herd surrounds that wounded elephant and holds it up until it's strong enough to walk on its own again. And I just related to that so much. And I started sharing about it, you know, after convention. I was like, oh my God, that's me. That's what you guys have done for me. And that Christmas, I had moved in with my friend Matt over there. And he made me something. It was a Christmas present. Because I had also, like, after I had gone through all that, you know, I was just, like, thinking about, like, how I stayed clean through that, you know? Because there were times when I didn't think I could. Like when I went out to actually get his clothes for his funeral, like, I went into the bathroom and I found, like, a needle full of dope. And it was in my hand, and I was like, am I going to use this? What am I going to do, you know? Unfortunately, I had some people with me, and I turned around for a second, and one of them went in there and saw it and got rid of it. And I mean, that's like one of those step 2 things, I think, those little God winks or whatever. And so I've been thinking, you know, like I said, recovery's hard, and it's not for pussies. So I was like telling all my sponsees at the time, just don't be a pussy. That's all you need to, when you think about using, just tell yourself not to be a pussy and it'll be okay. And so, like I said, for Christmas that year, Matt gave me something that he had made. He likes to make stuff and do art and stuff or whatever. And it was an elephant. It was actually an Avon perfume bottle shaped like an elephant. And he had, like, put all these, like, toothpicks in it to look like spears, and there was blood coming out of the spears where it had been speared in the back. And he took it to, like, probably Things Remembered, the place that they do engravings or whatever, like at the mall. And he had, like, mounted this elephant that's being speared in the back on a piece of slate. And he had a little gold plate put on it, and had it engraved with the word pussies. That was the best Christmas present I've ever got in my life. Because I got it. As soon as he gave it to me, I totally understood, you know, you can throw whatever you want at me, you know, like life sucks. You know, you can hurt me, you can wound me, but I'm still here, I'm still standing, I'm still clean. I'm not going to be a pussy. You can be if you want to be, but I'm not going to. And the thing is, you know, like, I'm not, you know, we're addicts, and that's what we do, you know what I mean? Like, life, it's hard, you know, the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life is feel feelings. I mean, truly. That's why I used in the first place, so I didn't have to deal with shit. And, I hate, sometimes when I say that, like, don't be a pussy or whatever, I know that people go through things, and sometimes it's very overwhelming, and, I don't want to put anybody else's pain or what they're going through. I just know that we can stay clean through anything. I know we can. And so, since then, my life has changed a lot. I've stayed in NA. I've taken multiple service positions and tried to stay connected to the best of my ability. I graduated from college. What's really crazy is, like, I used to, like, steal from everybody that I knew, and now, like, the state lets me handle $375 million of federal money, which is really weird to me now. I think about that a lot. I'm like, if you only knew. But that's what it's the gifts of recovery. You know what I mean? Like, I've worked hard, and I run a program for the state. It's a really complicated program, and they let me do it. I don't know why, but they do. And I have 2 more children now, so I have 4, and it's challenging having 4 children. And like I said, this year has been awful. I mean, it's been awful. I felt like I did when I was out there using a lot of the times, because I've been very isolated. My parents are both have cancer diagnosis, and they have for a long time. They're compromised. So, I decided that I was going to make sure that they were as safe as possible. They're in their 60s, and we didn't let our kids go to school at all until recently. They stayed home with us. We work from home. By the way, I now, have another significant other, which I met in recovery, by the way, and we've been married for, I don't know, a year and a half or something like that, but I have 2 more kids with him. And, we've kept our kids at home. We work from home. 2 of the kids were toddlers. 2 of them were tweens, and fucking miserable. It's really hard. Really, really hard. I mean, 2 of my kids are just off the chain insane. They really are. And 2 of them are just kids, so they're still off the chain insane. But the 2 of them are very difficult. And, we didn't go out at all. We were those people who, like, I would go to the grocery store masked up, like, with some Clorox wipes or whatever to even wipe my door handles off and stuff like that, and got home and sanitized our groceries outside in the garage and went to the shower. That kind of stuff, making sure we kept our parents safe. So yeah, we were like those crazy people there for a while. And there was that. There was trying to teach all my kids at home like me. I was their teacher on top of my insane job, trying to manage $375 million for the state. It's just been stressful, and it's been really, really hard. And my husband had 7 years clean, and he had to pick up a white key tag on Wednesday. And I'm not even mad at him, man. I felt it too. I felt that shit. Like, I have wanted to use more this year than I've ever wanted to use in my whole entire recovery. But I made sure to stay connected. I made sure to continue going to area service, even if it was on Zoom. Even if I had to go to these god-awful Zoom meetings. They were cool for, like, the first couple months, and I was like, I don't ever want to do Zoom again. And I don't get to a lot of meetings because I have all those kids. But, I have made damn sure that I make it to my home group, and I damn sure make sure it's open on time for everybody every single week. And I make sure that I fulfill my position as area service. And he relapsed on Monday, and we used once so far, and hopefully it stays that way. And the thing is, like, not that I want to get high, but if I did, I can't, because I have to come and fucking speak at this goddamn convention. So when they say service saves lives, there you go. So yeah, it's been a hard year, and I'm still clean, and I'm still doing what I was taught to do in the beginning, and I know that I'm going to be okay, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be okay too. He's here. He's told me to go listen to Frank, because Frank's been through a similar thing. He's like, no, you just don't want me to be listening to you talking shit about me. Nah, that's not it. I talk shit to you all the time at home, doesn't matter. But yeah, recovery's hard. It is. It's really hard, and we can do it, though. We can do it, and look at all these people around us to help us. You know what I mean? I know it's my decision to make every day when I get up, whether I'm going to use or not. But I have so many people to help me, and I have so many tools, and step work, and my sponsor, and the principles that I've learned here to apply to my life every day that that keep me grounded and keep me making the right decision each day. So thank you all so much for listening. I got suckered into this. What's really cool about it is the girls that suckered me into it now have enough time clean to speak at the convention, so guess who I'm going to nominate. I love all you guys. Thank you very much.